So thank you so much for joining, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to Executive Job Search Reality Check Standing Out in 2026. I am Jen Donnell, the founder of VP Circle. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, guests and VP Circle members. Just a reminder, please keep your phones on mute until the start of the Q&A at the end. So just a couple of points. So VP Circle is an invitation-only executive networking community that we launched the second half of 2024. So we are 18 months old. Today, we're proud to have more than 1,000 members, executive level leader members on LinkedIn and in our membership database. And these individuals come, yes, so exciting, right, Andy? And these folks come from various industries, geographies, professional functions, representing almost every company you could even think of. So we're really excited about that. Yep, Jimmy, it's so exciting. And our mission is simple. It's to create meaningful spaces and opportunities for executives to learn, network, and grow together. Today, we've curated this conversation specifically because the executive job market, as you know, is more challenging than it's been in years. Even highly accomplished leaders are finding it harder to get traction. It's harder to get noticed, by recruiters. It's harder to break through these very, very long hiring cycles. And so, we really need to understand what's changed, what's going on behind the scenes, what's different today than it was maybe a couple of years ago. So today's discussion is meant to be really informal. There are no PowerPoint slides or anything like that, but it is going to be candid and it is a reality check. We're going to talk openly about why the labor market is so tough right now, why so many strong executives are facing challenges, and maybe what you need to do differently or consider doing differently in 2026 to really stand out. And if you'd like to learn more about VP Circle, please go to www.vpcircle.com. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge and to thank our executive sponsor for this season, for VP Circle's second season. Giampolo Law Group is a boutique law firm known for its thoughtful, inclusive, and highly practical approach to legal counsel. The firm serves as a strategic HR advisor to leaders and organizations on matters related to employment and workplace law, fairness and equity, inclusion and accessibility, LGBTQ, and legal matters. They also specialize in estate planning and family law. You can learn more about Giampolo Law at www.giampololaw.com, and we are very grateful for their financial support in our second season. So now before we dive in, I'd like to introduce our panel. So we're joined today by 6 executive search and career advisory professionals representing perspectives from London to New York to the Midwest, from the Midwest to the Carolinas. And each of them works closely with senior leaders and organizations and brings a unique vantage point on what's really happening in executive hiring right now. To ensure that we can all get to the topics, we can get to all the topics that we've planned for today, I'm going to try to keep my comments to a minimum. We're going to roll from one question to another question without any breaks, and we're going to hold our questions until the end. So without further ado, let's welcome our panel. So we're going to start with Tori Mitchell. She's a strategic talent partner and talent acquisition leader with over a decade of experience in full cycle recruiting. She's currently serving as the head of search and staffing at Juno Search Partners, which is a certified women-founded talent solutions firm. She's passionate about connecting top-tier talent and organizations of all sizes, from emerging startups to Fortune 50 powerhouses. In addition to that, she's also an active member in her business community, serving on several boards and professional associations and volunteering her time to various causes. So welcome, Tori. Debbie Douglas is a talent acquisition leader, career wellness coach, author, and the founder of 3D HR Media Staffing Solutions, the staffing firm of 3D HR Consulting. She offers staffing services to various industries, from entry level up to and including executive search, from startups to media, entertainment, creative to corporate industries. She's known as the talent whisperer. She's a trusted staffing partner. She brings over 20 years of experience, including her last in-house corporate role as director of TA at Paramount. She's the author of a book called Now What? 12 Strategies to Landing the Career That You'll Love, Not Tolerate. And she's a sought after speaker on leadership topics. You can learn more about Debbie at her website, debbiedouglas.com, or on LinkedIn. Welcome, Debbie. Mario Anastasiadis is the founder of Digna Recruitment. They are a real estate focused executive search firm. He established this firm alongside his partner, Andreas Michael, who is also with us today. He leads senior level recruiting through the US as well as the UK and Europe, partnering with investors, developers, operators, and advisory firms to build high performing leadership teams. With a background in real estate, he brings firsthand industry experience to the executive search process, combining market insight with a deep understanding of talent requirements that drive growth and long-term value creation across the real estate sector. He specializes in placing director through executive level professionals across a broad range of real estate disciplines. He's based in London, operating across key markets throughout the United States and Europe. Thank you for joining the conversation today, Mario. Dr. Noble is a business leader, executive advisor, president, and COO of the Christopher Group, an executive search firm, where she partners with boards, CEOs, and senior leadership teams to strengthen organizational culture, leadership effectiveness, and enterprise performance. With more than 2 decades of experience as a chief people officer, a chief human resources officer, and a chief talent officer, Pam brings a pragmatic business-first lens to people strategy. Welcome, Dr. Noble. Andreas Michael is managing director of the US at Digna Recruitment, which is, again, as I mentioned, a specialist search firm focused on commercial real estate, equity, and private credit markets. Andreas partners with debt funds, private equity platforms, investment managers, and banks, placing senior leadership across originations, credit underwriting, capital markets, and structured finance. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, Andreas. And last but definitely not least, Carla Hill, co-founder of GPS Career Strategies and Business Strategies, is a senior HR executive coach, career coach, business owner, committed to equipping individuals to accomplish their economic empowerment goals. The firm helps build business owners and individuals, helps them to transform their organizations and their careers via human resources tools and strategies. She specializes in equipping people to identify their superpowers so that they can leverage them to accelerate their career path. She graduated with a bachelor's degree from City University of New York's Baruch College and obtained a master's degree from Chestnut Hill College in Philadelphia. She holds certifications from the Society of Human Resources Management, Human Resources Certification Institute. She's certified to administer Myers-Briggs Personality, Career Direct, YES, and the DISC assessment. She was employed by the City of Philadelphia for 35 years in progressively responsible roles. She retired as an HR executive from the City of Philadelphia, but she has not retired from her mission of economic empowerment of herself and others via career planning, business development, and asset building. So we've got a large wealth of knowledge and expertise collectively on this call today. So again, welcome to the panel. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective on these very important topics. And so we're going to jump right in now. Our first section will run about 15 minutes. It's called Reality Check. These questions will be answered in no particular order by Andreas, Michael, Dr. Noble, and Mario Anastasiadis. So this first section, here's the first question, guys. I'm going to ask the question. One of you just jump in and take it. And then guys just kind of play softball with it, pass it to the next person, and then we'll roll through the other questions in this section. So starting with this first question, from where you sit, why does the executive job market feel so unforgiving right now? From where you sit, why overall does the executive job market feel so unforgiving right now?
Yeah, so I can start off. I think of course, as you mentioned, we specialize more in real estate. From what we've seen, I think in both London and the US, companies are being sort of very picky in terms of who they hire. I mean, it very much comes down to keeping the positions open for 6 months or more. They don't necessarily want to rush the process. They might have had bad experiences with hires. They might have hired an executive 3 months later, back to the drawing board, restarted the search. And I think also what plays sort of a crucial point of it, they always have to sort of report to the board. So I mean, if it's a case where they have made some bad hires, they don't necessarily want to take that responsibility. So I think from what we've seen in the US specifically in the last couple of years has been exactly that. People want to take their time in terms of hiring. They have stretched the actual process. So whereas before it might have been maybe 3 stages, it could be sort of several. And I think it just comes down to responsibility and finding the right person who's going to be there in terms of longevity, long term, and not necessarily incurring recruitment fees to find an executive, and then a few months later, sort of being back to that drawing board and restarting the search is what we see, and I think is one of the sort of main reasons at the moment.
Absolutely. And just to echo that, of course, margins are being squeezed everywhere, and naturally firms look to their highest earners for cost cutting purposes. So effectively there are, smaller, less roles at the very top and a larger candidate pool because of these layoffs that have occurred. So every role just feels a lot more competitive. You're up against more people. One of the main things that I've seen as well is a real appetite shift. There is no appetite within firms anymore for any sort of ramp up time. Previously, you might have seen someone's a great cultural fit, um, and they might not, hit the ground running from day one, but we're happy to work with that. There's not much of that anymore. Really firms want someone that's been there, done that, preferably at a larger firm that can go and replicate what they've done as well to kind of mimic that growth that they've been able to contribute to.
Yeah, to build on what Andrea said, I think it is the making sure that it is the right hire and it that they have the skills and capabilities to do the job. But cultural fit is very important, especially from the C-suite level as it relates to making sure that the culture, the values of the organization are embedded. And while they aren't the ones that necessarily deliver that, they have to model the behavior. So the results and the ability to prove that they can do that is really becoming a critical asset, which I don't think many people really have the ability to articulate clearly and concisely.
Thank you all for that. So we talked a little, so we kind of answered a little bit of the next question. So I think this is a good segue into question number two. So what has fundamentally changed about how executives are being evaluated compared to even 2 to 3 years ago? So you mentioned this cultural fit piece, but let's keep going with this. What else has fundamentally changed about how executives are being evaluated compared to even 2 to 3 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it comes down to having a faster impact in terms of companies want to see more of a tangible impact now. So instead of being very generic in terms of you led a team, being more specific in terms of, I mean, from a real estate perspective, very much on portfolios. So the type of portfolios you've worked on, asset classes, and I think just being very relevant to start with, because if we've got 100 different resumes, they've all got very similar experience. I think what stands out is those who are more specific in terms of the experience. It might be a case where they've worked on projects which the company are familiar with or have worked in for a competitor, and just demonstrated that they have that experience, that knowledge, and that expertise rather than sort of a broad experience within that field.
Do you
I
think
also think
also, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Pam, and then I'm going to hop in with
I
something.
was I was going to say I think it's also being able to demonstrate that they've accomplished things and really talk to the ROI of what they bring to the table. And the ability to take what they've done in past experiences and show them how it can be done in this particular company. And I think a lot of times that's the missing piece. They give cookie cutter answers without looking at where this organization is from a maturity level, from a transformation level, or whatever's happening in that, and bring that knowledge and how they would apply it in that company or that organization.
So then if that's the case, Pam, would you say that like hiring managers are less likely or less wanting to, I don't know, use their imagination for a better way to put it, for lack of a better way to put it. So, you're giving me these examples of what you've done, and perhaps they're not exactly relevant or exactly related to what we want this person in this role to do, but I could imagine and assume that if they could do this, then they could do that. Do they want someone that's done that said thing? Do you know what I mean?
No, I think they're looking at it more from a curiosity level. How are they going to approach this issue that they've done in the past in my organization, which is different? And they're missing that critical component of sharing what they've done, but also showing how they can apply it and that they understand the organization. There needs to be a lot of research that's done. They need to know the organization, what their challenges are, what their struggles are, and how they can help them solve those problems.
Thanks, Pam. Anything to add, Andreas, to this, or should we roll into the next question?
I think just one main thing for me, from what I've seen, is everyone needs to be a bit more of a player coach now. To be honest, I think there's less appetite for a hands-off strategic leader who's kind of, three layers removed away from execution. Everyone needs to be contributing to the bottom line and, being able to drive business whilst you're managing a team as well. So I think there's layers being shattered there a little bit and more being expected from the leaders.
Thank you, Andreas. Debbie, I see you have a hand up. Do you want to say something before we go into the last question for this section?
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Nope,
Oh,
we're
okay.
good.
Just wanted to make sure
Yep,
I had you. Okay, great.
yep,
Okay,
nope.
so here's the last question in the section. So, what's the biggest misconception senior leaders have about today's hiring market? What's the biggest misconception?
Yeah, I would say from what we've seen, I think it's being very dependent on your resume. So throwing your resume out there, just applying for a bunch of jobs, but not necessarily having a relevant resume to that position or the company. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few candidates who might have several different resumes. I mean, that always helps in terms of standing out. But I would say not depending too much on the resume and sort of letting the track record speak for itself, but at the same time, not just on paper, of course, once you've had that opportunity to have initial conversation with a recruiter. And then I think also having that transparency in terms of allowing the recruiter to advise in terms of any amendments on your resume before sort of submitting across to the firm. And at the same time, if you're applying directly for a position, so not necessarily going through a middleman, such as a recruiter, I think it would be beneficial to do a deep dive into the company first, and sort of amend your resume based on that, of course, given the relevant experience. Let's say in terms of metrics, anything you can highlight that's going to make you stand out in comparison to the 100 other sort of resumes that they sort of receive.
I also think
Andreas or
there's
Pam?
the agility piece, being able to go from 1 minute to the boardroom, maybe the next minute to the production floor, and then rolling up your sleeves, as we said, being more tactical and digging into a particular problem at a level that you may not have been required 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I think it's that agility. I also think it's too, not necessarily under this understanding the company, but it is, the types of questions that are being asked, the types of questions that were asked 4 or 5 years ago by candidates needs to change and move forward to where an organization currently is, even to show their level of curiosity of how they can make a difference and the different aspects and ways that the different lens that they would bring to a problem versus what's always been done.
Thanks, Pam. So we've got about 2 minutes in this section. Would anybody else on the panel like to jump in and comment on anything that was said or anything that wasn't said?
Hi everybody. I think just to kind of sum it up, and the theme that I'm hearing is that it's not just, pedigree that everyone is looking for and what school you went to or what job you just came from, but it's really about how can you show your impact. At the end of the day, I think that's one of the key highlights and really being changing old habits in terms of the job search strategy.
Thanks, Debbie. All right, we're moving on. So this next set of questions will be answered by Mario, Tori, and Andreas. So the first question, what causes an executive resume or LinkedIn profile to blend into the background, even when their experience is stellar? Stellar. What causes the executive resume or the LinkedIn profile to blend in? Not memorable.
I think it sort of ties to what I was saying earlier, in terms of we're very much coming down to generic language. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of resumes or candidates describing themselves as results-driven leaders with proven track records. I mean, which is amazing. But when you have 100+ candidates with the same sort of description, you need to stand out. So I think again, it comes down to the specifics in terms of compelling deals, metrics, results, and having that on your LinkedIn bio. Because many times I might receive a resume, I will always look at the candidate's LinkedIn, and I think it just stands out when they have an extensive bio reflecting their experience on their resume. Whereas many candidates, it's not an issue, but they tend to have the experience on their LinkedIn sort of bio, not necessarily having anything extensive in terms of completion, so projects, metrics, results. And I think that definitely stands out, especially when you're applying directly to a company page, because the first thing they're going to look at is either the resume or the LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, and I want to add as well, when a resume has too much operational detail and not enough impact detail. So if it reads more like a job description instead of like a narrative, right? And I have a lot of hiring managers and clients that I work with that are looking for impact and achievements and what they truly accomplished in those roles. So I think tailoring your resume to include those types of things will get you farther in a process.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have a 30-minute conversation with a candidate. I know how good they are. I've taken notes. I look at their resume. I'm like, this does not reflect in any way what you've just told me. I see senior executives at banks and financial institutions cram 10 to 15 to even sometimes 20 years of experience in one bullet point. They know what they've done, but the hiring manager needs to see what you've done basically. And yeah, just to echo what Mario and Tori have both said, make the metrics pop. It's kind of a catch-22. It is our job as well to get on the call and really ask those open questions and find out more. Okay, how big was your team? Okay, by how many billions did you grow originations in your first kind of 3 years? It's down to us to kind of uncover that, but we need kind of something to go off. So it's kind of a bit of a tug of war, a bit of a seesaw, some back and forth. Yeah.
I see a lot of resumes as well that will include metrics, but those metrics it's metrics without meaning. So what do those metrics, like what did you actually accomplish with those metrics? How did it affect the ROI or the bottom line? Rather than just putting numbers on your resume, also explain like how you accomplished that and what it did for the business.
Thank you. At what point in the process do great candidates most often get screened out and why? Do you find that most of the screening out is happening at, the point of reviewing resumes? Do you think it's happening further downstream when it comes to just the interview process in general and one's ability to really sell themselves? Do you think, I don't know, where do you think it's happening mostly?
Yeah, this is quite interesting because whenever a client of mine catches something quite late, I feel like that's too late, and they feel like that's too late, and they're like, we should have caught this earlier. And they maybe change the interview process to say, okay, we're going to have the technical as our second stage instead of going through, the conversations. Okay, we really like this person, but when we actually dig into the technical aspect of it, they can't do it, so they're screened out basically. So I've had clients change that process. So I do think kind of going back to, the appetite for ramp up time and things like that. I think that the main one that I'm seeing is if they can see you can't do the main skill needed for the job, that they're just not going to move forward, basically, is
Mhm.
from my perspective.
Yeah, and I think there's a big narrative, especially on LinkedIn right now, that people are being screened out before even being reviewed by AI and systems and applicant tracking systems, things like that. And so, while I think that's true, I think that does happen with some organizations. My organization does not use any AI filters when screening applications. So if they're being screened out early by us, it's because their resume does not include those keywords that we're looking for this particular role. And so that goes back to Mario's point earlier that you need to tailor your resume and your application for the job that you are applying for, because there is a supply and demand issue right now. And there are a lot of applicants for every position. And so we have to be selective, more selective than we've been in the past. And we have to be aware of our time and our time management. And so we are selecting the candidates that most closely fit exactly what we're looking for this role. So if your resume is not aligned with that job, then you're likely getting screened out. We don't have the time as recruiters that we used to have those conversations. I used to have a lot of networking conversations, and I still do, but my time I don't have as much time to do it, where I can just speak to someone and learn more about them, and see if maybe they're a good fit, right? There's too many applications and applicants right now to spend as much time doing that. So I'm looking for the folks that are most closely aligned.
Yeah.
So Andy just put in comments, Andy Wise just said that he was in process for a role or applied to a role, and the recruiter said that 8,000 people had applied to it.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't envy that recruiter that has to go through all of those applications.
Don't let that
Andy,
put you off from applying though, because 95% of applicants probably aren't suitable for the role. So still apply if you are suitable.
I think adding to what Tori and Andreas both said as well, I think it sometimes comes down to the actual position itself. To give you an example, if it's a very niche position, I think the company don't have that much leverage in terms of being very selective. If it's a position in terms of there's maybe 50 people in the country that can do it, okay, fair enough. They're going to go with experience. If it comes down to let's say in real estate, just a general asset management position, they're going to have again hundreds or thousands of applications. So then it's going to of course come down to experience, but then it's going to come down to characteristics, how enthusiastic you are, how much research you've done, attention to detail. So I think the initial stages definitely very much on the resume, but I think when it gets to sort of mid to final stages, you're going to stand out when it comes down to sort of characteristics, how much you've researched the company, and of course, relevant experience always plays a key part.
Thank you, Mario. Um, would anybody else on the panel like to comment on anything that has been discussed? All right, we're moving on. So this next section is called Practical Advice. This will be answered by Debbie, Douglas, Carla Hill, and Dr. Noble. So there's 4 questions in this section. We'll start with the first one. What does it really mean to stand out right now? Beyond buzzwords, like what does standing out require right now?
I'll just jump in right there. Just around standing out, it's a lot of what a lot of the recruiters and the search execs have talked about. One is clarity of your thinking. You also want to, again, lead with your impact. You're not talking just about your resume, but you're talking about your story and how you can be an asset in itself. And building the ability to accurately articulate your experience and complex experience with examples, that is truly going to be able to help you again stand out because people can actually envision you in the role doing X. You can come with examples after you've done your research, talk about how a project that you worked on in the past was similar to a project or maybe even an initiative or launch, and how you can apply the skills that you already have from your past jobs and directly say, well, based on that launch that you had, I can immediately see that you can do X, Y, and Z. So put yourself in the role before you're in the role.
One of the things that I like to say is that people don't even know how to tell their own story. And it really is about your story, what you bring. Your views may be different than theirs, but how do you articulate it in a way that they seek understanding, that it gives them a different way to think? And it really is, how are you a storyteller of your life, your accomplishments, and the roles that you've had and how they can apply with the current organization that you're trying to work for?
Carla.
I completely agree. And I think the work starts downstream at really assessing yourself. People are so focused on the external. Oh, STEM is in, AI is in, but I really need to know what's in you first. It comes out. And a specific example, last night I was invited to attend a networking session for federal government employees and City of Philadelphia employees, that former federal employees that the city is looking to bring them on board, right? Because we've lost a lot of federal government employees. And when I'm talking to a specific candidate, I'm asking him questions and he's saying things, but I'm skilled enough to really ask further questions. And he was just giving these very superficial responses as opposed to really sharing what was authentic about himself. He really cared about economic development, but his experience was all HR. But once he felt comfortable sharing with me what he's looking for, I brought him over to the commerce director, right? Like, it's not an HR. Your energy is, even she said that, right? She's like, oh, you completely changed when you were talking about impact and economic development. People don't spend time reviewing themselves, right? They're just repackaging the same things. And after 35 years, the HR executive firing lots of people, they're not bad people. Most of them are just not aligned with their design, and we get mediocrity. So from an employer standpoint, from a candidate standpoint, when you bring your best stuff, when you bring your superpowers, everybody wins. The employer wins, the individual wins, and whoever we're serving wins. Right? So I think that's the core mistake, that people don't spend enough time really reviewing all of what they really bring, and they just give the same warmed over things, and it's not working.
I have to so agree. And actually, I'm giving you a shout out, Jen, because that speaks to one of the sessions that you did articulating your value. I remember we did a session on that, and it's like, how can you share your value in just a couple points and have that prepared and ready for the recruiter, the hiring manager? You're not stumbling, you're not thinking about it, you're not pulling memory, but you can say, I'm Debbie Douglas and I'm known because of this. People reach out to me because of X and I solve this problem. Like that should always be on the tip of your tongue. So shout out to Jen and VP Circle because I remember that session around articulating your value.
It's so funny because my background is in performing arts and theater. And, we were always told, you better have your own monologue ready. You need to always have a monologue ready on cue. You should be able to deliver it with your eyes closed, standing on your head. And so it's really, in some ways, it's the same here. So next question. What signals tell you that a candidate is serious, strategic, and worth advocating for? What are the signals that tell you that a candidate is serious, strategic, and worth advocating for?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I think it does require a conversation. Thank you for telling me I was on mute. Of bringing that out. I mean, HR people, we are skilled at asking behavioral-based interviewing, right? I'm looking for, like Debbie talked about, I'm looking for behaviors. I need proof. I don't need AI answers. I don't need theory. If you're a project manager and you say, oh yeah, I do my projects this way, that way. Oh, what are your biggest challenges? I haven't had any challenges. I know you're not a real project manager. You're just not, right? Because you don't have any examples. So I think it's asking the questions where I'm looking. The word enthusiasm in the Greek, en is in, theos God, and asm is the breath. I'm looking for that enthusiasm. I know it when I see it. And we have to be skilled at asking the questions to draw that out, because you can be so rehearsed where you are pressing play and it comes out. So it's the skill of the recruiters, the operations, whoever's interviewing. My goal is to really keep tapping to find out what's there. Because you can have that same sort of skill sets on your resume, but I'm looking for that superpower, that's something that you know it when you see it. I know what I'm looking for.
I also think there's a level of passion that the person needs to have. And I think, unfortunately, right now with, the market being what it is, people are just trying to get a job and they're not looking how they add value, and why this organization is the right fit for them. And they're kind of in this rote mode of, long time ago, the Dunkin' Donuts used to say, time to get up to make the donuts. And sometimes you feel like you're talking to people that are just making the donuts. You don't know what they're really going to bring to the organization. They can tell you their skills, but they can't really think beyond, is this the right fit for me?
Yeah. Also just making sure that your resume, your LinkedIn, and your narrative all align. So they're all telling the same story, but in a different way. Obviously, your LinkedIn is your theatrical part where you're able to, tap dance and showcase all your skills and the whistles and bells that a resume can't speak to. And then once you get in the room because of your resume and LinkedIn, now it's time for you to show the proof is in the pudding, the outcome, the business impact, what transformational change, leadership outcomes that you have, and that's kind of where people start to shine. And to your point, Pam, it's really about the employer, the recruiter, the hiring manager. They also want to know why they're special. That's so important. Not just the job. Why are you coming here specifically? You could have went to any tech job. You could have went to any media job. But what about us makes you say, this resonates with me and I am the right person to be a representative in this department, in this role, or in this company?
I think there's also to a level of authenticity, because people go to interviews and they perform, and are they really showing who they are? So they get the job and then they're miserable. And so it is really, people are also looking for that authenticity that they bring of themselves, because you're going to have to fit into that. And you don't want to be that round thing in that square peg, or whatever that saying is. But
Yes. Just one last point, because I forgot, is the questions that you're asking. The recruiter and the hiring managers pick up on how serious you are about the types of questions. I think it may, someone alluded to it earlier, but truly coming in with those questions, use the job description, low hanging fruit, to derive those questions that you can ask the hiring manager or recruiter. When they're in the meeting, take notes. I have no problem with applicants taking notes when I'm interviewing them, because they may want to build on something that I asked them or something that I told them about the job or the company, and build on that using their interview content and using it to create your own questions. It really does make a difference. If you walk out of my office and have no questions, you have no job, because that means you understood the job and you can do the job in your sleep, and there's nothing for you to find out. And you know everything. So that's not what we're looking for.
I agree. I think there's a certain level of prep that really is required. Like you really have to do your homework. Like I've had people, I mean, I'm not a recruiter, but just as a head of HR, interviewing people, I've had people look tremendous on paper, just amazing on paper. They come in and it's so underwhelming. And I'm just like, did you prep for this? Did you role play with anybody? Like, did you look at the job description and then try to pre-plan out? Like you can look at a job description and then like make your list of, if you were the recruiter based on this job, what should you be prepared to answer? What questions do you think they're going to ask you? Because chances are 50% of the questions you come up with, you're probably going to get. So it's like doing your own homework, role playing, preparing, find somebody to help you, write your own questions, and then give them to somebody else and tell them, ask me these questions, just so that you can get to talking. You can get it loose in your mouth and in your you can get it going so that you don't walk in cold. So many people, they walk in cold, and it's just, you've got one shot to impress, basically. Okay, so moving to question 3. How should executives be thinking differently about networking in this market? So let's talk now, let's like VP Circle, right? We've got like 1,000 people in this group that work for every top company you could possibly think of, every industry, right? We've had this connection of people right here, and everybody knows somebody else. It's like, how many degrees of separation are we all away from somebody else's dream job, basically?
Yeah.
So, how should we be thinking differently about networking?
I think for networking, it's not about just building contacts, but it's about um, building your credibility before you actually need it. So you're curating strategically your network and building that authentically, organically, checking in with them on a regular cadence, not bothering them, but maybe you send them an article that was relevant to maybe their launch. Or something related to their industry. Now we're back in person, attending events, and again, being strategic about how you're networking. Who are the key players that you need to meet and talk to? So again, it's not about just building like Instagram and followers, but these connections, they need to be strategic and specific to what your goal is. Where do you want to land? What type of role do you want to be in? Who are the people and where are they at? So that's how I look at networking intentionally and strategically.
I completely agree. I still think it goes back to, what do you want? If you don't know what you want, you don't know who you're looking for either, right? So it's not just general HR. Like, Debbie said, oh, why here? Why this technology? Do you like, you know, this specific firm? Why do you like this specific firm? But if you haven't asked those questions of yourself, how are you going to be strategic about where you want to network to? So I still think it begins with knowing what you want. Then you can filter out the others, because there's tons of ways and tons of places. But to the extent that you can be focused, then I think that increases your chances of success. You know what you're looking for.
I also think it is a give and take. Uh, so that you are, when you're networking, it's not always just about you, but also how you can help that other person, whether it's through a connection or an article, like you said, Debbie. It is a give and take. And then I always say this. I don't follow my own rules. It's kind of like do as I say, not as I do. But it's also that piece of network all the time, whether you have a job or not. People only start to network, most people start to network when they need something versus a continuous process. My kids just graduated college, and I tell them and I ask them, tell me two people that you have networked with this month that is not in your circle. And just having those conversations so people get to know you and you get to know them.
And you become top of mind. Where it's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, I just met that person that asked me for a coffee chat 2 weeks ago. Boom, I have a new opening next month, and now you're top of mind. And that's because
Mhm.
you made that connection and you organically networked with them. So it's always about before the job posting comes, how can I be ready? Even when you have a job, sometimes you can do soft
Mhm.
networking. You never know what could happen. I didn't know I was going to get laid off in 2024, but I was always doing the things in terms of networking and doing my piece, and staying visible in all platforms and in person and digitally.
Thank you so much. So our last question for this section, if an executive only changed one thing in their job search in 2026, what should it be? Make one adjustment, what would it be?
I one of the things when I speak to before business students, and we talk about in terms of assessing yourself, right? In terms of what are the strengths, the SWOT analysis for entities. We know how to do it for entities. Do we do it for ourselves? Can we list our strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats? And the other thing, if you do use AI at in any way, well, keep using because VP Circle has done plenty of panels on that. But I have a career planning colleague that had a client who this is for $250,000 position. And the feedback that the candidate that he was supporting lost the position and did get feedback that that person didn't have anything about AI on their resume. Because I think we just use it and it becomes just part of us. But they are looking for us to collaborate. When I say they, corporate government employers are looking for us to collaborate with AI. So if you don't mention it at all, they just figured that's not something that you do. So I definitely think find a way to make sure that you have examples of how AI has helped you with your position and how you can see helping where you're going as well.
And just to piggyback on that is stop doing what you did 10 years ago to get a job. You have to incorporate all the new ways that you are actively, strategically searching, job searching strategies. And to your point, in terms of the AI, incorporating AI to help you with that job search. There's so many platforms now that are candidate specific, not only employer specific, that actually helps them, cuts the job search process in half, your strategy in half. Use the prompts to effectively ask the right questions around what jobs, what companies, how should I approach this search for X position at this level with this amount of years? So, utilize that. If you're leaning away from it and you're scared of it, you are behind, behind, behind. Get in front of it. If you're not already utilizing it in your own personal and professional life, please start now. There's so many courses free that you can take. YouTube University, they didn't have that back then when I was in college. You can literally learn anything at the drop of, anything on the internet. So I would definitely say that, and just not stop leading with your resume and lead with your value and your story.
And to build on this, and I agree with everything that's been said, but it goes back to know thyself. And I think one of the things that I still do every single year is when I think of my job, I list the top 10 things that are important to me. And it is not by title. It is what I get passion, what gets me excited, and what I like to do. And then I encourage people to look at those jobs that they're applying for to say, do they have these things? And oh, by the way, stack rank them. I did this once. My CHRO at one point in time came up to me and said, Pam, you've lost your sparkle. I'm going to get you an executive coach. And I was head of talent. And I'm like, are you trying to fire me? Even though I'm the one that was saying we need to get coaches to develop and not terminate. And when I did that exercise, I realized the two most important things for me were not on the list and would never be in that company. And that was my wake up call. So that's why I do it every year, so that I'm making sure that I don't lose my sparkle. And therefore, if I were to go someplace else, I bring my sparkle with me.
Thank you, Dr. Noble. So we are at 5 minutes until. This concludes our panel today. We're going to open up the floor now for the next 5 to 10 minutes, probably until like 1:05, for questions. So feel free to come off mute. And if the air is clear, if the air is silent, feel free to just blurt out a question. It would also be helpful if you would say whether or not the question is something that anybody on the panel could answer, or whether you want a specific panel member to answer your question. So feel free to come off mute now and answer and ask any question that you might have. Somebody's got to have a question. All of this good material, somebody's got something to say.
I'll say something, Jen.
Hi, Andy.
Hiya. Thanks for all the information. It's been great. I think what the challenge is actually getting, at least my challenge has been so far, is actually getting the interview. It's like, I've rewritten my resume. It's laced with different accomplishments over the different years. To me, it shows high impact, and for whatever reason, still not getting any traction. So what we've discussed so far is really more, okay, the interview and going forward, but it's almost like any nuggets to get to that point of getting the interview.
Andy, are you saying also that, do you feel like you're taking your resume and dropping it into the abyss? Are you directly applying for things online? Is that what's happening?
Directly applying and also networking as well, but still rabbits. And I hit that big milestone of 60 this year, so it's like, oh shoot.
I mean, I think it could be a combination. It's hard to really give you a blanket um, a pointer or strategy, not knowing what your resume looks like, not knowing what your LinkedIn looks like, not knowing what efforts you're currently making, and you could be making a ton of effort. And sometimes you have to give yourself grace, especially in this moment. It is so challenging. I speak with career coaching candidates every day. And the sentiment is very similar to what you're experiencing. They're not even able to get an interview. So the first thing I talk about is, what does your resume look like? Of course, maybe you might have updated it, but how is it being updated? Are you framing it the right way? Is it more of a skills-based resume that they need to see, or is it more chronological that may change how you're applying for a specific job? Because maybe you're doing a pivot. It could be so many different things. It could be your LinkedIn is not showing who you really are either. The whistles, the bells, or are you strategically networking on LinkedIn? Again, you could be doing all these things. I'm not sure, but just thinking about off the top of my head, those are typically the main things. And of course, not only relying on obviously the resume going in and hoping to get a call. You have to hit them at all angles nowadays. It is no longer the days of just applying. That has gone out the window. Um, a bigger percent of people are actually leaning into referrals and warm intros because of the fact that it's saturated to the 10th power. So people are more inclined to end up connecting with someone that was referred to them or was a warm intro. And so start to lean into your internal community and then your external community and lean into them to help you get those roles in different companies. If you see anyone that you know that's attached to that job or that company, reach out to them and then say, is there anyone, either you or someone on your team or in the TA or HR department that I can speak to? These are why, these are the reasons why I'm qualified. This is the job description. This is my resume, and this is the link to the job. So you make it easy for them. Don't make them have to do more work for you. It's like, hey, what do you guys have over there? So many times I get that. And I'm just like, I can't be your personal headhunter. You have to do the work as well. And again, I'm not saying that you're doing that, but just giving you blanket generic information that could possibly help you if you're not already doing it.
And Dan, I'm going to challenge you right now, in 30 seconds or less. What are you looking for?
First, come off mute. Looking for a HR director, people director role, preferably with an organization which has some sort of impact to communities, not just financial impact. That would be my ideal sort of situation. Yeah, I've
Where are you
operated in.
located? So is there
I'm in Florida.
Okay. Is there a
but
social
it's
service mission specifically?
no. I mean, where I am is a very small location, so we're even looking at sort of either remote or relocating. It's been a while.
Yeah. So as clear as it could be, granular, because I think people want to help, just like Debbie said. But if we have to think too much, even the helpers, it's like it's just too much. But to the internal, the focus, whether it's those social service organizations that you are looking for, do they serve elderly? Do they serve, like, I don't, I can just always really shrink it down even more. So like writing it out where it's just in terms of what you're looking for. And maybe each week you are focused on a segment of what you're looking for. HR director in specific spaces is not just for profit, right? So that's what I would work on, just so people that want to help could really help.
Couple of things, because I know we've got some drop off, and then if folks want to stay online, if you have questions, that would be great. I do want to I just want to start by saying thank you so much to the panel. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. I really hope that everybody enjoyed today's event, Executive Job Search Reality Check Standing Out in 2026. If you are interested in having follow-up conversations with any of our panel members, please shoot me an email at inquiry@vpcircle.com with your resume and indicate the panelists that you would like to schedule time with. Tran Hun on my team is going to drop some links into the chat box right now. Maybe copy and paste these things, grab these things here from the chat box if you can. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you do, you can go to YouTube and punch in VP Circle. This recording will be up on Monday or Tuesday. So if you'd like to refer back to this recording, please go ahead to our YouTube channel and subscribe. You can learn more about VP Circle at www.vpcircle.com. Also, if you're not a member, we are an invitation-only community. You can request to be a member if you go to www.vpcircle.com and click on Become a Member. And we're dropping that link to request to become a member. We're dropping that in chat right now. Also, stay informed of our events, job opportunities. We partner with lots of headhunters and executive search professionals. We announce jobs as I get them. Consider joining our Slack channel. We're dropping that in chat. That's one of the places where we drop job opportunities. I would also encourage you to register if you liked this event, register for our next event. It's on March 19th. I think that's a Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. It's called Inclusion and Culture, the Human Side of Business. And it's facilitated by Danielle Clark, who is the global head of talent at eBay. And our executive sponsor, GM Polo Law Group, will also help to facilitate conversation at that event. And Tran on my team is dropping the link to that to register for that event in chat. And that's really it. If you have any questions or need any support or guidance on anything, reach out to us at inquiry@vpcircle.com. But again, if you'd like to have more time with one of our panel members in regards to your particular situation, send me an email with your resume. Please indicate who you would like to spend perhaps 30 minutes with, and we'll try to coordinate that for you. Again, thank you so much. Let's continue to learn, network, and grow together. And if anybody has to jump off, that's fine. Thank you, Layla. I see that heart. Anybody that would like to stay on who still has a few questions, we do have like maybe 2 minutes left. Yeah.